This is continuing coverage in the trial of Alex Murdaugh from True Crime Today.
Welcome back to our continuing coverage. I'm Tony Bruschi. A forensic pathologist took the stand in the Alex Murdaugh trial to refute the testimony given by the defense's expert witness. The defense claimed the gun that killed Paul Murdaugh made contact with his head when it fired, but the pathologist testified that her findings showed that the shotgun did not come into contact with Paul and explained how much worse the damage would have been if it did. This contradictory testimony highlights the importance of forensic evidence in the trial and how it could make or break the case. Take a listen.
That's about Paul, and you heard the defense pathologist and their subsequent expert talk about there being a contact wound to the top of Paul's head. Is that correct?
That's what he said.
All right. And you, of course, have already testified during your direct testimony that there's no way for this to be a contact wound, but now you have specific observations about the defense conclusions.
Well, you know, I didn't think it was necessary for me to point out every physical feature of the wound that demonstrates that the entrance was to the top of the left shoulder and then went into the left side of the head before exiting the top of the head. Now, before I go on, I do want to say that I agree with the book that keeps being brought up, that when there is a contact shotgun wound to the head, there's massive gas expansion within the cranial cavity, within the skull. And what that does, it doesn't just create a hole with some, bones. I understand this was like the most severe thing you have ever seen. And you probably can't imagine that the damage to the head could be any worse. But a contact shotgun wound to the head with the associated gas expansion to the skull would not have, his face was basically intact. We would have had tears of the skin, and his eyes would have been either displaced from the orbital bones. The orbital bones were intact. Anytime there's massive gas buildup within the cranial cavity from a contact shotgun wound to the head, which the book does say is when we have the worst gas expansion, the entire face, he would have not even had a face left. I mean, I know what you saw was awful, and it was absolutely awful, but the damage would have been a lot worse. He would have had, the sides of his head would have down, he would have had, his entire face would have been split open, because there's no way all of that gas expansion could occur and not cause fractures of these delicate bones in the face. His forehead was even still there. So, I agree with the book that a contact shotgun wound would cause severe gas expansion and damage to the head. What we have here is not consistent with a contact shotgun wound to the head. The damage to the head would have been much worse, even though this was already horrible. Okay, that being said, there are photographs. Okay.
Yep, and I'm going to put up what's already been admitted into evidence as States 486. And if you could, Doctor, just talk a little bit about this image as it illustrates what you're talking about with the face, but also, if you could, we'll go ahead and talk about with the face, and then I want to talk about the shoulder a little bit as well.
There's no skin, torn apart of his face. His eyes are still in their correct locations. It's hard to imagine that, anything could be worse than a hole at the top right side of the back of the head. But in my 20-plus years of experience doing autopsies and seeing contact shotgun wounds to the head, which are associated with massive gas expansion in the skull, this entire face, he would have had tears, the eyes would have been either hanging down or lost, blown out. There's no way that these features are consistent with a contact shotgun wound to the head.
All right. Now, there was some discussion by the defense pathologist about shaving the top of the head for stippling or checking for stippling. And can you comment on the necessity of that in your actual autopsy that you conducted?
Okay. So, He also said that sometimes we actually don't see the soot. Like he said, oh, if Dr. Weimer shaved the area, she would have had the opportunity to see the soot. So suppose I didn't see soot, or I did see soot. First of all, I'm confident there would not have been soot because the features of this wound are not consistent with a shotgun wound to that location. First of all, the damage to the head and face would have been far more severe than it was. And then also, the wounds to the shoulder and left side of the cheek have all the features of entrance wounds.
All right. And one of the things discussed by the defense experts was sort of the large sort of oblong shape of the shoulder. Can you explain how that does not contradict your findings of that shot coming this way, that we see this injury here? And I'm going to actually put up Defense Exhibit 162 to illustrate what we're talking about.
All right. Well, so we've got basically an oblong wound here, and that's because the wound is entering at an angle along the top of the shoulder. It's not hitting the shoulder at a perpendicular angle. So it kind of grazing along the top of the shoulder. Okay, now is this, okay. So, and actually, he said that the pellets are going down. Okay, well, if you look at it as an entrance wound, they're actually going up. So it depends where you're looking at it from. If he's thinking that this is an exit wound, that this is, that the end of the wound path, then it would look to him as if the pellets are going down. But we can see this is actually an entrance wound for a few reasons. First of all, if it were an exit wound, do you remember all those pellet exit wounds on Paul's left arm that came from the chest? The pellets are not just going to stop in the shoulder. There's like no resistance there. The pellets are going to continue going until they exit the left side of the arm. Okay, so they don't just stop there. The reason they're there is that's because they started there. Okay. In addition, you see all of this white material here on the edge of the entrance wound. That's styrofoam packing material that's between the pellets. So the pellets are contained within wadding, and there's styrofoam packing material between. And that would never have been deposited there. So I did not think it was when I was telling you the direction, my determination of the direction of this wound. I did not have to necessarily, it was my expert, I'm an expert at determining, forensic pathology includes establishing the direction of wounds. And because of all of these things, this was my determination. Okay, now there's another feature of this photograph. Do you see that this is coming into the left side of the, this is what I determined, left side of the cheek, and we've got all sorts of abrasions around here. Now it doesn't have the classic, what we saw on Paul's chest had those little petals, so we knew that the wadding was starting to open up. But in this case, there was wadding that was probably open as well, so we have some pellets already starting to come out. It's not entering within the wadding, but the wadding is going along and entering there. And we have all this abrasion around the left side of the cheek, the chin neck area. And that's consistent with, we're not going to have that abrasion if it's coming out. It's going to push the skin out. We're not going to have an abrasion. So, all that but even just common sense, we have that styrofoam packing material on the outside of the arm. My determination, this went up through the left cheek, out the right side of the top of the head. If it were a shotgun entrance wound, contact to the head, I don't care whether, there's no way his entire facial bones and skin, his ears would have been flopped down. There's so much gas expansion that the damage to his head would have been much worse. So that's based on my experience for doing this. And, I just don't know how, I didn't mention that styrofoam packing, but that's from when the pellets are coming in. And he said, oh, you can see they're going down. That's because he's looking from above. So but if you look at where I believed and I determined by doing this autopsy that the entrance wound is, it's actually going upward. So it depends which side of the pellets you're looking at. And if just logically, if this was an exit, the pellets wouldn't have just stopped there. They've got a huge amount of energy. They're going to continue through the arm and have individual pellets. They wouldn't have all just been concentrated right there. So, we can use our powers of logic, which I think, we all have, to understand how this is an entrance wound that exited the right side of the top of the head.
Dr. Reamer, having specifically, and you can take a seat now, thank you very much, having specifically addressed the specific criticisms of the defense pathologist, in your expert opinion, having actually done the autopsies in this case, is there any way that could have been a contact wound to the top of the head?
No.
Right. And having addressed the specific concerns and testimony of the defense pathologist as it relates to Maggie, is your conclusion still that the shot went in the direction as you described before this jury?
Yes, I disagree with his conclusions.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Reamer. Please answer any questions the defense counsel may have.
That's the latest that we have for you right here. Be sure to press subscribe wherever you download podcasts so you don't miss any breaking updates as we continue to cover the trial of Alex Murdaugh for you right here. You can get a complete list of all the cases we're covering for you in the episode description. My name is Tony Bruschi. You can follow me on Twitter @TonyBPod. Stay with us.